Ever feel like you're just drowning in someone else's needs, a family member maybe, and their problems somehow always end up becoming your problems? Well, today we're going to dig into a really complex and honestly often hidden family dynamic that can feel like a total trap. If any of that rings a bell, then you are definitely in the right place. Okay, picture this. It's late, you're finally relaxing after a long day, and your phone starts buzzing. You glance at the screen, you see who it is, and damn, that feeling just hits you. It's not happiness, right? It's not excitement, it's dread. Just this heavy, sinking feeling deep in your gut. That physical reaction, it's telling you something really, really important. And that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? Because this whole thing isn't about a lack of love. In fact, a lot of the time, it's disguised as being super close. But if it's really love, then why does it feel so suffocating? Why does this bond feel less like a hug and more like a cage? All right, let's go back to that phone call. It's a scene so many of us know. You know, you answer, and for the next hour, it's just a one-way street. A non-stop monologue of their problems, their stress, all their drama. And what are you doing? You're just sitting there, on the other end, literally feeling your life force being siphoned away. So what happens if you try to set a boundary? You know, if you dare to say, hey, I'm kind of busy right now. Oh, you know what happens? A tidal wave of guilt just washes over you, and the thoughts start spinning, right? I'm such a bad son. I'm a terrible daughter. I need you to hear this loud and clear. You are not a bad child. You're caught in a really destructive psychological trap. It's called enmeshment. Okay, so what even is this enmeshment trap? You know, sometimes the easiest way to get what something is to see what it isn't. So let's put it side by side with a healthy family dynamic, because trust me, the difference is night and day. So look here. On one side, we've got healthy closeness. See, the parent is the parent, the child is the child. There are clear, distinct boundaries. They're two separate people who choose to connect. But then you look at the other side, enmeshment. Those boundaries, they're gone, totally blurred. There is zero separation. It means if the parent is sad, the child has to be sad too. It's like a requirement. And this right here, this is the heart of it. That phrase, not permitted their own separate emotional reality, that's everything. Let's make it super simple. You're not allowed to be happy if they're unhappy. Period. You can't feel peaceful if they're freaking out. You basically become an emotional extension of them, not your own person. And you know what makes this so tricky, so insidious? It's that it's disguised as something good. You hear things like, oh, we're just a really close family, or you're my best friend. But here's the thing. Real, true closeness actually requires separation. This isn't closeness. It's a hostage situation pretending to be love. So where the heck does something like this even start? Well, the roots are pretty much always planted back in childhood. And if you want to break free, you first have to understand the role you were forced into, a part you never even auditioned for. We're going to call it your childhood job. Yeah, there's actually a psychological term for this job. It's called being an emotional surrogate. And it usually happens when a parent's own adult relationships, like their marriage, are falling apart. They can't get the emotional support they need from their partner. So, subconsciously, they turn to the easiest, most captive audience available, their kid. And this promotion to their emotional partner, it shows up in some really specific ways. They tell you secrets about their marriage, stuff a kid should never hear. They'd complain to you about your other parent, putting you right in the middle. And here's the big one. They'd praise you for being so mature for your age. But that was just code for, please carry this adult burden that's way too heavy for you. But let's be real. You weren't mature. How could you be? Your brain wasn't even fully developed. You were being parentified. That's the word for it. So that praise you got, it wasn't a compliment. It was the sound of your childhood being ripped away. And of course, that kind of childhood programming doesn't just vanish when you turn 18. Nope. It's like a piece of software that keeps running in the background. And it follows you right into adulthood, popping up as these really specific, destructive symptoms that can completely sabotage your happiness and your relationships. We're going to zoom in on 3 of the biggest symptoms. And as I go through them, just see if any of this sounds familiar. These are the direct results of growing up in that kind of enmeshed world. First up, symptom number 1, that crippling guilt we mentioned earlier. It's like your shadow. You get a promotion at work, you fall in love, you have a great day, and you can't even fully enjoy it. Why? Because deep down you feel like you're betraying the parent who's unhappy. Your own happiness literally feels like a criminal act. All right, symptom number 2. A serious lack of identity. Has this ever happened to you? Someone asks a super simple question like, "So, what do you want for dinner?" Or, "What do you like to do for fun?" And your mind just goes completely blank. It's because your whole life was spent managing their reality, their emotions. You never got a chance to figure out your own. And that brings us to symptom 3, codependent relationships. This is where that childhood programming really shows up in your romantic life. You keep finding yourself attracted to people who need fixing, right? Toxic partners, projects. It's because your brain was wired from day one to think that love equals saving someone. A healthy, stable person, it can feel, well, kind of boring, because there's no crisis for you to solve. The role of savior is the only one that feels like home. Now this is huge. Underneath all the guilt, all the people-pleasing, there is usually a volcano of a hidden emotion, rage. Just pure fury that you were robbed of a childhood. But in these families, getting angry is the ultimate sin. It's seen as a betrayal. So what do? You shove it down. But that anger has to go somewhere. It turns inward. And that's when you start seeing things like depression, chronic fatigue, even autoimmune diseases. Okay, so after all that, the big question is, how do you get out? How do you escape this cage? The good news is, it is absolutely possible. It's not easy, it takes a ton of courage, and you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. But let's walk through 3 concrete first steps you can take to find your freedom. All right, let's break these down. Step 1 is what I call the pause. That crisis phone call comes in, don't pick up. Let it go to voicemail. You need to create space. You have to retrain your nervous system that their emergency is not your emergency. Okay, step 2, resign from the job. You need a simple, neutral script ready to go. Something like, "Wow, that sounds really hard. I'm sorry you're going through that, but I can't be the person you talk to about this." And finally, step 3, grieve. And honestly, this is the toughest one. You have to grieve the fantasy, the hope that one day they'll magically change and become the parent you always needed and deserved. Now, I gotta be real with you. When you start doing this, when you start setting these boundaries, there is going to be pushback. They will get angry, they'll be hurt, they'll be disappointed. You have to be ready for it. But this quote says it all. Their disappointment is literally the price you have to pay for your own freedom. And I really want you to let this sink in. Your life is not supposed to be Act 2 of their tragedy. You are the protagonist of your own story. You're never meant to be a supporting character in theirs. Your purpose in this life was never, ever to fix their unresolved baggage. So let's bring it all home. The final message is this. You know that massive weight you've been carrying, the one that feels like it's been on your shoulders your entire life, the responsibility for their happiness? Put it down. It is not yours to carry. It never was. You have full permission to set it down, turn around, and walk into your own life. Free.